How is it that these financial institutions, banks, insurance companies embrace technologies and switch to the newer models, the new age models?
The first step really is to set up the internal private cloud. So this is a fully virtualized environment. It's an on-demand environment to any consuming group. At some point in time, banks will start to look along the continuum, start to look at those applications which they can try to put onto public clouds, and then they need to get into the complexity of managing both public and private cloud, which is a hybrid cloud model. So the benefits are pretty large, and I think this will be the path towards achieving them.
Well, a very basic question that comes to my mind is that how is it going to be different from these institutions actually making use of websites?
So it won't actually be very different. If you look at, if you look at smaller companies, large banks of course host all of their websites internally. But take the example of an e-commerce company, which wants to set up shop. It's going to basically rent its website. It's going to be a cloud model. Everything is going to be on demand as and when they grow. The website and the storage associated with that, the compute power associated with that begins to grow. So the model is actually pretty evolved when it comes to e-commerce startups. They've mastered the art of making sure that they don't get into heavy upfront capital expenditure models. So that model has been pioneered, whether it comes to, website, whether it comes to data crunching, etc. It's all there. It's there for banks to learn, from their counterparts in other industries.
This cafeteria approach towards adoption of technology, do you think that this is going to be long lasting, or there are certain fixed technology requirements that institutions will in any case have? So cloud computing, even if it is adopted, will have to cater to some basic requirements which might actually be a major chunk of the technology requirements of a company.
So if we look at it futuristically, I don't think cloud computing and the related services would be restricted or rather could be boxed out in so far as being able to kind of be of use to banks in an X but not in Y. And the reason I say it is this, directionally banking, and just like every other industry, is becoming very competitive, right? As banks, honestly, what we'd rather do is, and therefore whoever's going to succeed are going to be the specialists and not the generalists. If you're doing everything in-house, you're probably not the best one out there. As bankers, what we'd rather do is spend 90% of time focusing on what the customer wants and how do we get it to him the best way. I would rather leave the technology part of it. I would rather leave, say, for example, and the bankers have been the gladdest when the Aadhaar came in, because technically it's taken away the whole KYC onus of the banks to something which is institutionalized and bigger than banks individually are per se, right? So that's the kind of value that players like these, whether it's on the cloud or otherwise, could get in. And then the bankers are left best to kind of focus on what they do best, which is offer services, banking and financial services and advice to the customers. Because it's a regulated industry and there is a lot that goes on to say, I will in-house everything and I know how best to run it.
I don't think the RBI will be very happy or will be able to allow you to pass on your burden. But yes, it might reduce some of your work if you switch to cloud computing.
In a way, I disagree. In fact, our regulator is amongst the most progressive. They're, of course, cautious, but very progressive, if I'd say. So that same logic, and which has the blessings of the regulator and the government, as has gone in making the PMJDY and the related Aadhaar services a success, I'm sure that same forward-looking approach would come in here as well.
Well, Basudev, do you think this outsourcing model is actually going to work for something like cloud computing? On the regulatory front, do you require any changes to be made? And going forward, as your closing comments, what do you hope to see from the government?
So there are definitely some regulatory changes are expected. So RBI is setting up study groups and expecting those study group reports. The first report has already come in. But yes, going forward, if you need to grow the market, if you need to go to the unbanked, and financial inclusion is one of your key strategy, Government of India strategy, you have to expand the whole, broad-base the whole ecosystem. And the only way you can broad-base the whole ecosystem is adopting cloud and adopting mobility. So we see both of these going hand in hand. The banks actually have started investing heavily onto this, like IndusInd and other banks. And we see more and more they will start adopting. They have adopted the mobility part of it. Now they will start adopting the cloud part of it, so that they're, as I said, they get the economies of scale, they get the speed to launch new services and products, and also end of the day, the operational efficiency, the cost goes down.
So on a regulatory front, as a service provider, what would make you happy if to be able to provide services in India? Because digital India is an area where the government is laying a lot of emphasis. So they would like to see a lot of investment from companies like yours.
Yes. So as Microsoft, we are extremely committed to Indian market. So that one of the proof point is we establishing a very large data centers in India, where we see already a lot of tractions happening, a lot of customers are inquiring, a lot of partners are already there on those India data centers. So we see the regulators, we expect the regulators to come out with some kind of a governing regulation rules, whereby they tie up the whole ecosystem, not only customers, the service providers, but also banks. So all these three partner ecosystem is covered in one singular regulations, which have been done in overseas markets. And India, definitely that's going to come in. And once that is in place, we definitely see a huge explosion in the cloud and mobility space.
Well, Mahesh, I'm coming to you for your closing comments. Can you give one piece of advice to the industry and one piece of advice for the government?
So I think from an industry perspective, what I would say is that, and this is to all financial services firms really, that this technology is here to say cloud computing is going to become a part of your future IT landscape. It is going to transform your data center for sure. It's going to change your infrastructure cost, which is like approximately 33 to 40% of your total IT cost. So you have to get with the program. You have to have a cloud strategy in place. And what I would recommend is you start to do pilots in certain areas which make sense. And you need to obviously balance that with the risk-return trade-off. That's one thing. And from a government perspective, I think it's high time that the government put more pressure on some of these groups to come out with concrete recommendations and then push through a framework of regulation which makes it clear as to how companies and specifically financial services firms will work with their cloud services partners.
Well, Dr. Pedgankar, your closing comments. What is your wish list from these service providers that is going to make life easier for Indian banks?
I can only say that if the service providers give the guarantee of the customer data security, that gives me the quite confidence that I can put the applications like the analytics, the CRM, and the websites are already, bank websites are already on the cloud. So customer data security is the most critical part for as far as the banks are concerned.
Oh, well, gentlemen, we have completely run out of time. Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure speaking to you as always.
Thank you.
Well, that's all that we have on this edition of the show. We will be back next week with an all-new episode. Till then, you can keep in touch with us on social media through Twitter on our Twitter handle, CNBC TV18 News, #AccelerateIndia. On Facebook, you can find us on www.facebook.com/CNBC TV18India. You can also visit our website, www.moneycontrol.com/AccelerateIndia. We will wait for your feedback and comments. Until next week, from the entire team here at the Noida studio, thank you for watching.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.